thank you guys all for coming late on a Sunday night. It's a huge honor to be screening here with DOC NYC. It's my first film I've had here, so great to be here. I will be here afterwards to answer any questions you guys have. Cartel was a crazy, wild adventure to make, and I ended up with a story that I never could have predicted or imagined. So I hope you enjoy the ride, and I will be back after to answer any questions. So thank you guys.
Thank you. I'd like to start with a question of my own, and then I'll throw it to the audience, so please have your questions ready. I wanted to know what inspired you to make this film.
First of all, thank you guys for staying so late on a Sunday. I was inspired by a number of things. I mean, literally I was inspired by an article that I read. I was riding in the subway in New York and read a Rolling Stone piece about Naylor on the US side. Took me about 7 months to gain his trust and gain access to that side of the story. And then I filmed there for about 4 months. And then my father sent me an article about the auto defenses on the Mexican side. And right when I read that, I knew I wanted to create this sort of parallel portrait of vigilantism on both sides of the border. Intellectually, I was fascinated by sort of what draws men and women to sort of take up arms. And I want to examine that. And I also was sort of fascinated by the drug wars. It's something that I've always been interested in. It's something that's really been glorified in movies and on TV. And I personally really wanted to sort of put myself right in the middle of the action to see how these wars are affecting everyday people, the response of everyday people rising up to fight back, and then sort of the ramifications of what happens when citizens take the law into their own hands.
You were certainly right in the middle of it. I'm sure that there were many situations that were very scary, terrifying. I was terrified just watching for a second time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a really frightening film to make. I'm not a war reporter. I've never been in any situation like this before. My last film was on healthcare in the U.S., which was a different type of battle.
Also scary.
Scary in a different way.
Yeah.
I've never been in a shootout, I've never been in a meth lab, I've never been in a place of torture, and all of those situations were really terrifying. I think for me, the most scary moment actually was not those more sort of adrenaline-filled moments, but was the interview that I did with that young woman, Milagros, who was kidnapped alongside her husband and witnessed him being chopped up to pieces. And to sort of sit in a room with this woman and look at her and see this human being that was there, but it was almost as if her whole soul had been sucked out of her. And to sort of hear her describe these horrors and to think that we're the same species of human beings that would do that to other people, for me that sort of psychologically stuck with me much more so than any of the more, again, sort of adrenaline moments.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the audience? Yes?
How did you get such unfettered access to these drug makers at the beginning and at the end?
I called my meth dealer and so that was something I fought for a lot. Meth was a big part of the story. Most of the meth that we consume here in the U.S. comes from Mexico, much of that from Michoacan. And then I stumped out Cartel. So I really, really wanted to film in a lab. And every single shoot, along with my small little crew, especially my local fixer there, we every shoot we'd ask people, do you know somebody, know somebody, know somebody? Do you know somebody who's connected? And for months we failed and sort of had some sort of false leads, almost happened, never happened, and I sort of gave up on it. And then it was on our second to last shoot, I got a call saying, be in this town square at 6 p.m. and you're in. And we went to this town square and met a group of masked men who drove us through these towns and smaller towns and fields. And then they stopped and they said, we're here to provide protection. And another car sort of slowly drove at us and they led us into the forest. And I've never seen Breaking Bad, but I'd always sort of imagined this as a sort of halogen lit sort of trailer-like setup. And I got out there and it was this forest and I don't shoot with lights. And so and the sun was sort of dipping beneath the mountains. And so I was just freaking out. I was like, I can't believe I fought for so long to get out here and I can't see a damn thing with my camera. And the head chef started showing me around the lab with this little flashlight, and it's with that little flashlight that I lit the scene. So we had sort of arranged beforehand, if it ever would happen, that I didn't want to be bagged or thrown in a trunk, and they wanted their faces covered, which I thought was a pretty fair exchange. So.
Yes, go ahead.
So, Knights Templar is a Masonic reference, and I noticed that the doctor was wearing a Masonic ring. There was a Masonic Bible, actually, when the first leaders all met. How much of what's going on down there is either Masonically affiliated or driven by Masonry? Or was it just totally?
It's so funny. I've done hundreds of these Q&As, and you're the second person to ever ask that question. Someone asked me whether the movie was funded by the Masons and whether I was a Mason. I'm not a Mason. The movie is not funded by the Masonic, I don't even know, temple. I know very little about that. The doctor was a Mason, and he had there's a group of them as well in Tepalcatepec, which is where he's from. So, yeah, I don't, what was the question?
The question is, how much of what they did organizationally was driven out of their...
Very little, very little. He just happened to be a Mason, but, most, they were shopkeepers, they were farmers, they were, ranch owners. Everyone sort of had their own story as to why they joined, as we, learned throughout the film.
Yes?
So how were you able to trust them when you were following the Mexican story? And if you weren't able to trust them, then how were you able to deal with following them, not trusting them in a dangerous situation?
How did I trust them, or how did they trust me?
Well, you them.
Me, them, okay. It got scarier and scarier as time went on. I thought, especially on the Mexican side, at first it was this very sort of almost classic sort of Western of guys in white shirts fighting against guys in black hats. And over time, obviously, the lines between good and evil became ever more blurry. And as that continued, it got more and more dangerous. By the end of the film, I could be on a aperitivo on a mission with them in the back of a truck and really not know who I was with. And that was really scary. And from a sort of a directing or producing point of view, even just the final act of the film with the doctor going into hiding, we were with the doctor, obviously, as he was going into hiding, as he was being hunted by his own men, by the government, by the cartel. And then, it was a 23-hour shoot day. We slept for a couple hours and then woke up really early, and the next morning we're with the government and Papa Smurf as they put on their government uniforms. And so, it was a very delicate film, especially to make at the end. But I think I was very clear with all sides that, I'm not here to take sides. I'm not here to, I had no agenda in making this film, I had no goal in mind. I just wanted to tell a story, and hopefully, the story ended up, as I said in the beginning, in the intro, in a way that I never could have sort of scripted, imagined, predicted.
Yes?
How many of the team, including the fixer, and what was the equipment installed from there?
How many in the team, including the fixture, and what kind of equipment?
Yeah, did you bring over?
And what equipment did I bring over? Shot the 99% of the film on the C300, which is a little bigger than a DSLR. Team was extremely small. Local fixer, local producer from Mexico City. Sometimes I brought another cameraman with me. Shot the bulk of the film, especially the verite and myself. At any given time, it was between 2 and 4 of us, depending on what was happening. But for a lot of the intimate scenes, it was just me alone.
Did you bring a sound person?
No sound person. No. Yeah.
Yes? In the green?
My question is, when you were editing the film, it seems like you're dealing with a lot of different complicated characters. How did you make the decision about how you were going to portray them and then how their characters would evolve
So, one of the things that I love about making documentary films is there's so many different types of films, there's so many different ways to tell stories. There's so many great filmmakers that I respect that do different things. What the films that I like to make and the films that I am personally attracted to are sort of films without an agenda. And so, I really, these are complicated men and women, to say the least. And I really didn't want to put them in a nice, neat little box. I wanted to sort of revel in the complexity of humanity. You're complex. I don't know you, but I'm complex, and I really wanted to let them play as who they were. Some people get mad at me in Q&As and say, why did you show that side of the doctor? And to me, there's many reasons why I showed that side of the doctor. First of all, it happened. I captured it. And it was who he was, and to not show that would not be telling a truthful story.
Was it a conscious choice to wait till the end to show that whole element, or is that really how it happened?
It's really how it happened. One of my goals in the edit room, there's so many moments in producing this film out in the field where I felt like the rug was pulled out from under me, where I thought I understood something, and then the story shifted, and then it shifted again, and it shifted again. And so my goal in the edit room was to really allow you, as an audience member, to go on that same journey that I went on. Whether it's, the plane crash, whether it's Papa Smurf losing the crowd, whether it's the doctor putting the hand on the leg. There's so many moments for me that were like, holy shit, I can't believe this is happening and the story is shifting this way kind of moments. And so I wanted you to feel those same moments too.
Yes.
I'm curious about, I'm sure everyone talks about this, but I don't know. So, your access with the doctor, and also the doctor saying that I'm curious about the situations and having them as the situations that
Are you a psychologist? Oh. Access was, really important to me. I didn't want to tell the story. I made a very conscious decision from the beginning. I don't want to tell the story from the outside. I don't want to tell the story in retrospect. I don't want to recreate anything. I wanted to be on the ground as this story evolved. And that's how I approached the doctor. I said, I want to be embedded with you and your group for however long it takes to tell this story. And I think what I've always found in the films that I've made is that once you get sort of buy-in from the top, you generally get access, whether it's filming in a hospital with my last film or filming with a vigilante group in Mexico. Once you have buy-in from the top, generally people underneath them grant you access, and that was very much the case with the doctor and the auto defenses and with Naylor and his guys. So once I had their buy-in, I sort of had almost carte blanche access to the group. But so much of the film was not, there's many sides of access. So first it's like getting on the ground and like, yes, you can film with us. But then it was like, first I thought I was gonna be there for a week or 2 weeks, and 1 or 2 weeks turned into 9 months. And I was down there for 1 to 2 weeks of every month. And so I developed really deep relationships with people on all different sides of this story. And just as an anecdote, like the scene when we get shot at, we're in the car and sort of fall out of the car, and then it's this like witch hunt through the city, and then they grab the guy out of the white Cherokee with the crying daughter, and then interrogate the back of the car, and then to the torture chamber. That scene never would have happened if I just sort of walked up and said like, hey guys, can I hang out with you for a day? That was 8 months of being down there. And the day before that, 2 of their members had been assassinated. They were driving on a road, and 2 guys on mopeds drove up and shot them in the head. And so the tension level was extraordinary. The anger was palpable. And so that next day, the day that all that stuff happened, I saw them, and I barely speak Spanish. My Spanish is horrible. But I saw them jamming magazines in their guns and throwing their flak jackets on. And so I asked them, where are you guys going? And they said, "Oh, we're gonna go get some Starbucks," and I was like, "Okay, well, I'll go get some coffee with you too," you know. And we literally and figuratively weren't speaking the same language, but I knew that something was about to go down. They knew something was about to go down, and I, you know, had their trust that they allowed me to come with them. You know, I didn't know what the hell was gonna happen, and if I did, I don't know if maybe I would have gone, but yeah. So much of it was built over time, and you know, my cell phone, wherever it is, you know, I have a Rolodex of people and all different sides of the spectrum, of good to bad to whatever's in between those two. That we were constantly WhatsApping to know what was going on, and you know, one of the hardest things was knowing when to be where and how, and you know, when to fly down, and then even when you're down there, like what character to follow, what city to be in, what you know, if they're on an aperitivo, which line in the car, you know, what you know, where you're the first car or the third car, which car is safer, which car is more likely to get action. So there's, you know, a million decisions being made, both on a macro level and a micro level.
Matthew, thank you so much for making this film and for bringing it to DOC NYC, and thank you all for being here. Have a great night.
Thank you, guys.